Welcome to A Fortnight on the Isle, my bi-weekly update series, and my apologies for missing the last one of these updates, real world stuff, and me kind of being incapable of recording for a week because of nose surgery ended up, kind of taking me out for a little bit. My surgery also just generally took me a little bit more out of it than I anticipated. The recovery was a little bit more intensive. Like, I was still expecting to do like some amount of work during that recovery, as an example, amidst other stuff that has been going on the last checks watch 4 weeks at this point, as opposed to just 2. It's been an absolutely crazy month, and I don't know if that's good or bad. Like, it's kind of both, depending on what angle you look at it. But yeah, I've just kind of been out of it for a few weeks at this point, and the last one of these videos didn't get recorded because I was not able to record it when I otherwise would have needed to before my nose surgery. So yeah, that's why that didn't happen. But through it all, I've done basically no work this past fortnight, so in a way, it's almost kind of a good thing that I have 2 fortnights to kind of talk about here, just wrapping up my reading and all of that other kind of stuff, and then we'll talk about the next couple of weeks just like we normally will in due time. So let's jump into it with the bi-weekly reading like I always do, and start off with the real elephant in the room. I did finish Crossroads of Twilight a couple weeks ago. I had thought I would be able to finish this, I believe, like the morning before I went and got surgery was the morning that I was planning to be done with Crossroads of Twilight, and then that didn't happen on account of some of the stuff that happened that week. That was a pretty just distracting week. There was too much other stuff going on taking up my mental space to be able to do it, so it took a few days longer to finish. I'll make my consensus on this at the end here pretty short because my monthly reading wrap-up will be coming out at some point here. We'll get to that in the upcoming releases section, and then I also have a review of Crossroads of Twilight that'll come out at some point in September as well. I forget exactly when that will be either, so sorry, that's a lie. It'll come out in October. It is currently September. That's how crazy September has been. I'm still thinking of next month as September. But in either case, finishing this was kind of a trip. I think the very end of it kind of took a pretty sharp decline in terms of the quality, largely because of weird structural decisions. If you want to know a little bit more about that, you can of course check out the monthly reading wrap-up and TBR that'll come out next week, or alternatively, you can check out the last reading diary that I did on this that I believe at the time of this video should have come out just this past Thursday, and the spoiler-free section of that ought to have a good rundown of how I largely felt about the book in general, so I recommend checking that out if you're curious. It was not a terrible book. That's the way that I'll summarize it. I did not loathe my time with it, but the end definitely wasn't as solid as I think it should have been, because structural decisions kind of made it work against what was working about the rest of it. So that's where I'll leave that. The other thing that I've read novel-wise was I read all of part 2 of Don Quixote in the past fortnight, actually. I read this in barely over a week. So at the time that I'm recording this, which is Friday the 26th, I started this last Thursday, and then I didn't read on Sunday. So I believe it was 8 days, 8 mornings of reading that I was able to get through these 500 pages. For me, that is fast. I plowed through part 2 of Don Quixote, and in comparison to part 1, very, very good. I loved part 2 of Don Quixote. It definitely focuses more on the amusement and the humor than part 1 does, which is funny that I loved it so much because the amusement and the humor in part 1 was not what I liked about part 1 at all. But I think a lot of that is because what makes the amusement of Don Quixote part 2 work is, one, there's a very meta angle to it, so the meta moments are amusing and funny. I liked the meta stuff in there. And then there's also the fact that it has, as a result of meta moments, you have characters in there that are kind of familiar with Don Quixote and Sancho Panza by that point, and they're like scheming and bringing to light, or maybe not to light, bringing to life the actual scenarios that those two characters find themselves in, which is inherently way more funny to me than like what part 1 was doing, where Don Quixote and Sancho Panza were like kind of just implicitly terrorizing people by their shenanigans, who were not in on the joke. And if you're in on the joke, that's what made that so entertaining about part 2. Part 1 did not really amuse me that much beyond a certain point because I found myself more annoyed by the characters. Part 2 had me like actually endeared to them, so that was really, really cool. So I enjoyed part 2 a lot, definitely more than part 1 on account of it actually nailing what I was expecting it to nail, but which part 1 didn't do as well. So that's how I feel about that. I will also have a review of Don Quixote coming out at some point in October, so be on the lookout for that. For short story related stuff, I don't have my Kindle with me, but I did actually go back and I read Life by Christopher Ruocchio, which will be coming in the Unbroken anthology Kickstarter collection that Christopher and I have previously talked about a few times. I'll try to include a link in this description if I remember, otherwise it's definitely included in some other reading wrap-ups and Fortnights on the Isles and stuff like that. That Kickstarter will be going live in January, but Life is a post Shadows Upon Time story within the Sun Eater, so it is the last thing chronologically in the series at this point. Christopher gave me early access to read that, and it is very good. Like, if you get access to this, if you get that Kickstarter collection, I recommend you do so, even if just for Life, because after you've read Shadows Upon Time, reading that story will be really, really cool. Like, I genuinely can't just say anything about it without it spoiling what that story actually does. So I'm not going to say anything about it at all. I also read another short story type of thing from Christopher that isn't in the public sphere at the moment, so I'm not going to say anything more about that. As for like TBR related stuff, things that I expect to read over the coming weeks, I don't have any of this stuff with me right now. Actually, I have one over here. I'm going to be starting House of Leaves, actually. This will be my one spooky season read for the year, so I'm going to be starting this very soon, probably this week at the time you're seeing this video. And then I have Rose of Jericho by Alex Grecian, which I've had on the docket for the last couple months, but I haven't had time for because of a lot of crazy stuff happening. Those are the two novels that I'm planning to read / start in the case of House of Leaves this fortnight. And I mean, realistically, it might even be within this fortnight that I even finish House of Leaves, but we'll see. I've given myself 3 weeks to read that, and you'll see why, because of video scheduling reasons. And then in terms of short stories, I've yet to read A Night to Savon, the 5th Adaman story by Christopher Ruocchio, but at the time you're seeing this, I have read it. At the time I'm recording this on Friday, I'll be reading that tomorrow morning, because next week I'll be getting to work on some Adaman related stuff for Christopher, which will incorporate rereading some of the other previous stories. So I want to read Night of Savon and actually get around to that. It's been forever since I've had access to that and just have not had a free moment. So I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll update you in the next fortnight on the Isle how that goes. But that is it for my reading. The bi-weekly gaming is a little bit of a different story. I do have to apologize for some things, but I'll also say right off the bat, first off, the one little bit of gaming that I did this fortnight was right before my nose surgery, and that was playing Indiana Jones: The Order of Giants. That's the DLC for The Great Circle. I thought the DLC was solid in a lot of ways, but it was very puzzle heavy with very mixed execution on those puzzles. If you want to know more of how I feel about that, you can check out my review that I did for this. I believe it was last Wednesday would have been when that came out on the second channel, so I recommend you check that out. Definitely not a slam dunk the way that the base game was, and especially not for the price, but all those things I go into in the review. As for the to be played stuff, I do have to like kind of, you know, take back what I've said for the last couple of months at this point, because it's been since August, really, since I've said that I would at some point here be starting to live stream Ghost of Tsushima so that I could, you know, just play that game ahead of Ghost of Yotei's release, which is happening here pretty imminently. Like, I believe it's this week, if I'm not mistaken, at the time this video comes out. And that's not happening, and it's definitely not happening on stream, and not right now. I really want to apologize for this. Surgery really took me out more than I thought, and I ran out of time big time on a lot of stuff. I'm very behind on work. September in general just really wore me down. I've been kind of out of it for a little while. And like I said, I'm just very behind on work. Video and freelance work are both included here, but like video work, you'll see a little bit of what my video schedule looks like just these next couple of weeks. But let's just say I do have a pretty decent video schedule for October, and none of it is done at the point that this video comes out, whereas I was planning for all of it to be done before this video come out, or rather like 2/3 of my October video stuff to be done by the time this video comes out, and right now none of it is done. So like I said, I'm very behind, so I just simply don't have time to live stream. Definitely not Ghost of Tsushima, and at this point, not Ghost of Yotei either. That disappoints me to no end. I'm very sorry. Want to apologize for making that promise that it would happen and not doing it. I might circle back around to these later in the year, like during the holiday season when I typically do more gaming anyway, but I'm not going to promise that in case it doesn't come to fruition. I'll at least try to stream Ghost of Yotei just because it's new and I haven't played it yet, whereas Ghost of Tsushima I've played a couple times. I don't have to play that again, so like I said, I want to apologize, but that's the way it is. Instead, I planned for a few games to be played in October on live stream for spooky season stuff, those being the 3 Little Nightmares games. I do tentatively still plan to do those this month, just because like in terms of video schedule and stuff, I do still have time. I have time open to do a few streams, and so I want to do those because I like Little Nightmares and those are short games, and I can probably work through those a little bit better, a little bit more decently than the bigger, more sprawling stuff like the Ghost games. So that is just a decision that I've made. I'm cutting out the Ghost games from the plans, and I will hope to stream with Little Nightmares in October instead for spooky season related stuff. So I hope y'all understand. But that is the way that things are looking right now. As for the bi-weekly cinema, it's crazy that I can talk about this stuff in this video because it feels like a million years ago at this point, but because the last Fortnight on the Isle never came out, technically, since the last one of these updates, I watched the legacy sequels for Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and Dial of Destiny. I actually really liked Crystal Skull. I really, really did not like Dial of Destiny. But if you want to know any more information about those 2 movies, watch either the review video that I did that covers both of them, if you don't mind spoilers, or check out the ranking video that I did that ranks all 5 of those movies. Both of those videos would be on the second channel. So if you want to know more about that, that's where you can find that information. The more relevant information to this video is within this past fortnight, I went and watched The Long Walk in the theaters because The Long Walk is one of my more favorite Stephen King books. And I gotta say, it's a 4.5 out of 5. This movie I so desperately wanted to be a perfect 5, but the last 5 minutes just ruined it for me. And I don't want to say ruined it like it made the rest of it bad, because it didn't very clearly. It's just that the ending that they decided to go with just thematically doesn't work for me, and was also nonsensical in a way that was like, not for me. And the more that I think about it, I'm like, that is not the ending they should have gone with. I didn't hate the sort of line of thought that they were starting to go with the ending, but ultimately what they decided to do with that, like I said, thematically was just not a decision that I appreciate. I have a much better idea, in my opinion, for how that ending should have gone, but it's like the last 5 minutes that I feel this way. Everything before those last 5 minutes are incredible, absolutely perfect, flawless, like dialogue, casting, framing, the shots, the editing, the pacing, everything so incredibly good. I would call this movie flawless if it was not for those last 5 minutes just making a decision that I do not think actually works for that story the way that they were hinting at it. So that is how I feel. I would like to do a review for this movie here on the second channel in the near future. Just not entirely sure how near it will end up being, and we'll talk about that more in the next section. The only other movie related information is that over the upcoming fortnight, whenever Tron Ares comes out in theaters, I plan to go watch that whenever I go for my second post-op appointment related to my nose. So I plan to watch that, but that's basically all that I had to say about the cinema. So, upcoming releases, videos that I have coming out on either of my channels the next couple of weeks. As you'll see, this is pretty stacked. I've got Oh man, how does the math even work on this? I think I've got 6 videos or similar planned over the next 2 weeks, with 2 of those being maybes and one of those technically being a live stream instead of a video. But in either case, it's a stacked schedule. So this week, starting off tomorrow, the 29th, on the second channel, Movie Magic episode 7 is going to come out. That is the Jaws episode, reviewing Jaws when I watched it for the 50th anniversary theatrical re-release. That's a little bit of a shorter video, but I had fun being able to review that. This Tuesday, on the 30th, on the main channel, will be a book binge episode that I had a lot of fun making, actually. That is new authors that I will be reading in 2026. I can't remember the exact title that I did for that video. It might be like that I'll most likely read, but I'm pretty sure I picked 5 authors in there that I will certainly read, plus have a few honorable mentions for new authors that I would like to read, but might not be able to. So that video is just going to be a fun one, and I hope that everybody checks that out. That one's going to be really great. Wednesday on the 1st is the variable one. This is like, if I had time this weekend, I would optimally like to have a review for The Long Walk out on the second channel on Wednesday, but I'm very sure that's not going to happen. Instead, I'll plan for that to probably come out in the next fortnight instead. On Thursday, the 2nd, will be the second reading diary for Don Quixote, just covering the entire second part of that, having a little bit of a spoiler talk about it, kind of, you know, talking about all the scenes that I found to be funny, which was most of them, actually. So that one's going to be a fun video. I'm going to be recording that right after I'm done with this one. Friday the 3rd will be the 10th episode of the Final Fantasy Let's Play. And then Saturday on the 4th on both channels will be the State of Affairs for October. Can't believe that I'm already saying there's another State of Affairs coming out, because the last time I did a Fortnight on the Isle, I said the same thing for September. In either case, that's what's coming out this week. Next week, on Sunday the 5th, on the main channel, will be another miscellaneous reading diary, but that's going to be like a first impressions type of video for House of Leaves, because I'm going to start reading that this week, and however far I get, doesn't really matter how far I get, but wherever I get to, I will do a first impressions little diary video of that sort next Sunday, as like a little just kind of bonus episode that I decided. It's like, you know what, I can go ahead and do that. I want to do that, so I'm going to do that. That'll be on Sunday. On Monday the 6th, on the second channel, will be Music Mania episode. I'm pretty sure it's 18, but I might have gotten numbers mixed up somewhere. Said things have gotten pretty crazy the past month, but that'll just be ranking every album and EP that I listened to from September, or rather all the new September releases in there. But there's like a couple dozen of, there's more than a couple dozen of them. I think there's more releases in September I've listened to than any month this year so far, so that's going to be a pretty stacked video. On Tuesday the 7th on the main channel will be my monthly reading wrap-up and TBR video. Nothing really new to say there. Thursday the 9th will be a books that I love that I will never read again. Very special episode of the book binge. That one I'm actually really excited about. I haven't recorded it yet, but I'm pretty sure that one's going to be really fun. I had a fun time making that list, and definitely trying to order that list a little bit to make some sort of semi-ranking with that was a little bit difficult, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm looking forward to recording it. And then Friday the 10th on the second channel will be the 11th episode, the penultimate episode of the Final Fantasy Let's Play. And then Saturday the 11th of the month is not guaranteed, but I'm looking at making that to be a live stream for Little Nightmares 3, since I believe that that game comes out on the 10th. So I want to be able to stream that, and I decided that instead of streaming the Little Nightmares like in 1, 2, 3 in that order, since 3 comes out early in the month, I'll just stream that first, and then I'll replay 1 and 2 a little bit later, and we'll be able to talk about that in the next Fortnight on the Isle. Not entirely sure if I'll be able to play all of that game in one stream. It seems like it's going to be a little bit longer, so I'm fairly certain I won't be able to play it in one stream all in one go, but we'll see what happens. I'll definitely plan for the first one of those live streams to happen on the 11th, but that is it for the upcoming releases. As for just to close up this video and like an IRL talk miscellaneous type of thing, it's definitely been a month of major change for a lot of reasons for me. I don't feel too much need to get into very much of that right now. I already talked about like the nose surgery, for example, which is like the most obvious example of that for me in the last couple of weeks anyway. But let's just say that there's both good and bad to accompany what's gone down in September. a lot of that change is still ongoing, still kind of wading a lot of waters right now, and perhaps I'll update you as necessary and as applicable in due time in the future. But yeah, everything at once a few weeks ago, I guess at this point, has definitely caused a lot of, we'll say I've had a lot of sleep issues the last few weeks because of a lot of things going on. So I'm just very, very tired right now. But for now, I have a lot of video work to go ahead and catch up on. So I'll be spending a lot of this week doing that. Thank you for watching this update, this Fortnite on the Isle. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. But for now, I've been your host, King Crusoe. You can call me KC, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.